Saturn in the second house. Saturn in the second house is a placement which, although Saturn is placed here in the house of a friend, this is a placement which can be very unfortunate, at least early on in life. It doesn't necessarily have to be so for everybody, but quite often that can be the case because Saturn teaches you through denial of that, where he wants you to be great. Now, obviously, you must have heard that Saturn delays, never denies, but early on when it's happening to you, it doesn't feel that way. Early on, when you don't have enough money, when you don't have enough finances, when you don't have enough stability, when you're in a situation where you're constantly feeling blocked in the freedom to be able to speak your truth, because the second house is that it's your truth, it's your speech. Early on, when you are in a situation like that, you don't really realize that Saturn is going to release control some point down the line and allow you to get all the things that you want to get. And so this can be a very difficult energy to have, at least for the first part of your life. Quite often, if you have Saturn in second house, then even if you belong to a first world country, and even if you belong to a rich family, due to some reason, due to some weird twist of fate, you have gone through a lot of unfortunate circumstances where you've just not had the basics there for you. Okay, it could be that your parents were rich, but let's say they left you with a nanny, or they left you with a caregiver who was not very careful, was not very attentive, and so you were not well fed. Okay, things like that can happen. Saturn in the second house, what you need to understand here with this placement is that Saturn truly wants to make you into an individual who understands the value of building a strong foundation. This individual with Saturn in second is probably going to go on in life and build a fortune, build something important, build something great. Even if it's not in the area of finances or property or material possessions per se, it's going to be in terms of creating something very tangible that the world is going to remember. Okay, so Saturn in second house people, they are meant to create something enduring. It's just that the process of creation of the same is very testing, very debilitating in the beginning, because the self-worth, the foundation of your confidence, of your belief in your abilities is quite often going to be just smashed to smithereens. Okay, and the lesson here that you need to understand is that unless and until you're building on a strong foundation, you're just not going to be able to build what you want to build in life. Okay, that is one of the primary things that you're going to realize. And even if you have Saturn second from the moon, you will feel a lot of this energy. Interestingly, having Saturn second or 12th from the moon is not considered bad. Having the moon alone is considered inauspicious, in fact. It's just that the process of the shaping of your mind in such a scenario can be of realizing the importance and value of building a foundation, building assets, building wealth by not having it. Saturn in the second house can often give an individual a very minimalistic understanding, a very minimalistic sort of a perception of everything from design to asset creation to, let's say, investments. Saturn in second house person is not going to be the person who is going to put their money into experimental investments. Saturn second house person is probably going to be the last person to climb onto the bandwagon of what do you say, cryptocurrency. But these people, their style of investment usually is focused around going big into one or two things. Okay, they're going to take their time to evaluate what works well and can continue to work, and then they're going to put in a huge chunk of their money into it, and that is going to grow over time. Okay, so Saturn in second house is, it's one of the placements where I'm really sorry if, you've gone through situations in life where for one reason or another, voluntarily or involuntarily, you've just had to be part of situations where the basic sustenance like food, clothing, shelter has been difficult for you to gather. There can be a lot of suppression that comes around, from your surroundings. It could just be the community that you're born in. It could just be the geographical location, which is a hindering factor. But quite often, it is also the family, which is quite conservative in their approach, quite conservative in their ideas, in their perception about life, etc. And they sort of impose, knowingly or unknowingly, the same things onto the native as well from childhood. And so early on, I mean, from very, very early in life, the native probably gets the lesson that the more you speak the truth, the more you're going to land yourself in trouble. And if anything, this quite often turns people into individuals who will not budge from the truth, who will not, shake from what they believe in. A very good example of this is Muhammad Ali. So Muhammad Ali refused to enlist at the time, of the Vietnam War, to go and fight, and that actually, I think, caused him to lose his boxing license for a while. But he did not take back what he said, and he said publicly that why the hell am I gonna go and fight this war? Those guys have done nothing wrong to me. On a day-to-day basis, I face more racism here, being a black man, than any sort of violence that has come about from those poor people that you want me to go and kill. So, and he faced a lot of backlash for the same. Let me tell you for that as well. That can quite often come about as an attitude that Saturn and second house people are proud of. Second house is the house of speaking your truth, but it's also the house of what you value. So Saturn in the second, the second house, the natural house of the sign of Taurus. This is an energy where your values don't really change much through life. Pretty consistent. So if I believe in, let's say, courage and hard work early on in life, I'm going to continue to believe in courage and hard work later on in life, and probably until the day I die. And this is why these individuals are quite stoic in their persona, and they have a way about speaking from the heart and speaking the truth with such conviction that they may not always be liked, they may not always be admired, but they're certainly taken seriously. Okay. Obviously a negative aspect of Saturn in second can be that you learn early on that you've got to just hide your emotions within yourself if you want to get by in life without problems. And so quite often you can be a liar early on in life. But around the first Saturn return, that is around about the ages of 28, 30, in that age range, is when you realize that, no man, I have been going about my life the completely wrong way. I, if anything, need to be the force against which all of these inauthentic, these fake ass people, break themselves. That is what I want to become. That is what I need to become. And so, much like the bull that stands for the house of Taurus, which stands for achieving the objective that you set for yourself, no matter how long it takes. Okay, much like that energy, Saturn in second is the energy of an individual who is not going to stop no matter what you throw at them. These are extremely resilient people. These are extremely hard-headed individuals. Okay, so how Saturn in sixth is the mark of a fighter, is the mark of a warrior, as I talked about in that video. Saturn in the second is, quite often the stoic. Okay, because the energy here is completely aligned around not only creating physical stability and security with your values, but also having an unshakable belief in your values, because the second house is also your self-worth. So putting Saturn there means that your self-worth has grown very slowly over time, and it's very closely related with the things that you value. It's very closely related with your ability to be able to speak the truth and say things the way they are. Okay, and that has a huge bearing on the way that you look at the world. So Saturn second house people quite often can be individuals, who can look at the world in sort of a black and white kind of perspective. That can be the case. It can be the case that because the second house is also your eyesight, it's also the way that you look at the world. Saturn in second house people can be people who can be a little bit cynical when they look at the world and their perspective of the world. And these people can quite often be very security oriented. That causes them quite often to be stingy. I know you don't want to hear it, but nothing against you. You've probably gone through things in life which have made you this sort of an individual. Saturn second house people are the people who are going to save money on things like toilet paper, who are going to save money on things like the dishwashing detergent and things of that sort. The brand of pencil, the brand of rubber and staple pins that they use, that sort of a thing. They will cut corners wherever it's possible when it's about spending money, and try to take that money and put into something big that will mature into something over time. Okay, so I would say that Saturn second house, all in all, is a very powerful placement in the long run. Early on in life, however, this is an energy that takes a little bit getting used to. It takes a little bit getting used to because the way that we quantify success, the way that we qualify success is associated quite closely with having things, having possessions, right? But Saturn second house is the opposite of that energy. This is an energy which is not about having possessions for the sake of having it. So if you have this placement and you have a tendency for hoarding things, then you are tapping into the negative shadow aspects of this energy. Okay, that's a shadow aspect of this energy. At a higher energetic level, Saturn in second house is the energy is the placement of a minimalist, but not a minimalist in the sense that they don't see the value in having a lot, but a minimalist in the sense like artistic minimalism. Like you see a French designer who designs let's say great restaurant or hotel with the minimum number of walls and doors and pieces of furniture, etc., and lighting required. Okay, So therefore, food, yes, food, drink, especially food that has to do with preservatives like processed foods, could very well be seen with this sort of a placement. But this is a placement which is a lot more ideological than it is, you know, really at the level of the physicality of expression into the world. Okay, because you will see a lot of people who are business persons, you will see a lot of people who are sports persons, you will see a lot of people who are, let's say, teachers, writers, architects, who have this placement. There's really no one sort of a type for this placement. But anytime that you spot an individual who says what is right and is not afraid of saying it, there is definitely some level of association of Saturn with their second house lord or with their second house. And the more you see that trait, the more you will see Saturn in the second house expressing itself. Okay, this can, I mean, inventions, etc., can be seen through this placement, but understand that Saturn is a conservative planet, and so being a conservative planet, Saturn in the second is more likely to see the percentage in building on top of what is already there rather than creating something completely new. So if you have, let's say, the North Node in the second house, this would be the placement of an entrepreneur. This would be the placement of a business person who comes out with new things, new assets, new investments. Saturn in the second house is an energy where the room for innovation comes about only when Saturn's agenda of security is achieved. Now, that level of security obviously will be seen through the health of the placement of Saturn in the second. If this is an exalted Saturn, then this can be an individual who is just very good at making large sums of money with minimal investments in the right places. If you have a debilitated Saturn, then this could be an individual who has had a lot of trouble speaking their truth, sticking to their values, have worked very hard to save money, and has somehow developed a difficult relationship with money in some way or another, which causes them to hoard assets and hoard things. Okay, and Saturn in his Mool Trikon sign, Capricorn, let's say here, is going to be an individual who just understands the value of working hard and works step by step with time to put more and more of their resources into creating the assets that they want and that they envision for the long term. Okay, obviously benefic aspects from Jupiter and Venus, etc., are going to help a lot. Okay, but this is how you have to sort of understand this energy. Now, if you have Saturn in the second house and life is not sort of going well for you, then the first place where you need to start making changes is you need to start clearing out the clutter in your life. Clear out the clutter with respect to the possessions that you have. Okay, clear out the clutter with respect to the unnecessarily restrictive beliefs that may have been drilled into you from a very young age. This might take a little bit of therapy to actually decode, but you kind of need to tap into this energy more and more to see, okay, where is this idea of lack coming from? Where is this idea of, let's say, not being good enough coming from? Where is this idea of defining security through a job and a regular income instead of taking the necessary risks to build a business coming from? Because with Saturn in the second house, one of your biggest lessons in this life is going to come about through creating stability in your own world. But that stability is not going to come about if you're carrying the wrong beliefs. So do a thorough audit of the beliefs that you've been handed down through previous generations. Okay, and yes, Your self-worth. What does it come from? What is it associated with? Saturn in second house calls upon you to be very authentic with respect to what you attach value to. That's it. If you can figure out authentically what you attach value to and put in the necessary yards to create a solid foundation that is consistent with your values, consistent with what you seek to and aspire to create in the world, this placement can actually make you one of the most powerful people, in your circle, at least in your community, in your city, in your state, in your country, in your field of work, for sure. Okay. And the biggest advantage of this placement is Saturn in second house people, they seem to not get old. Their face kind of sort of is frozen in time, because Saturn preserves. Okay, right. This has become a long video. I just wanted to touch upon these things briefly, but I guess this was enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel so that you can stay abreast of all the wonderful content that I post here. Push the bell icon so that you can be notified every single time I post. Thank you so much. Take care.